was a life moment of me. It's like, you can stop yourself, but if you want something bad enough, you got to get off your ass and go get it.
I'm Chad Parrish, your host. My guest today started his career as an engineer, building microchips and chasing efficiency on a factory floor. Then he did something most engineers, I can tell you, never do. He walked into the world of media and storytelling.
That was an ego crusher. The more we can learn about getting rid of the ego, the faster that we're going to get to success, right? To me, the story is the bridge. It's the connective tissue that helps derive impact on that.
Welcome to Process Over Pressure, the show for founders and operators who are building something real and need permission to believe it actually matters. I'm Chad Parrish, your host. My guest today started his career as an engineer, building microchips and chasing efficiency on a factory floor. Then he did something most engineers, I can tell you, never do. He walked into the world of media and storytelling. He launched some of the first original content on the internet and built an agency around a single idea. That connection is the real currency in business and in life. He is a TEDx speaker, a founder, and one of the most genuinely generous people I've ever come across. Stephen Seidel, welcome to Process Over Pressure.
There you go. You hit it, man. Process over. You were feeling the pressure on that last name, but you did it. Yeah, Stephen Seidel is here, and thank you so much for having me. That was an amazing introduction because it brings me back to my time of being an engineer and making microprocessing chips and creating content. The whole nine. You just put me through my whole career in 5 seconds. I just went. Thank you.
He's like flashing before your eyes. Like,
yeah,
oh my
dude,
God.
the time goes quick. I'm in the I guess I'm the second 9 of my life. You know, you first 9, you're in the second 9, and over the third chapter. But I'm right there, so thank you.
I bet you probably still have some of those microchips laying around the house somewhere, huh?
You know, I do. It was I remember it was a challenge because we put these little glasses on, and this is when we're making cell phone chips back in 2000. You know, the industry crashed in about 2003. I got laid off my first of 3 times, but every time I got laid off, it got better. But in that moment, I'm trying to get these lasers right. There's a guy by the name of Rafael Vasquez. He's trying to tell me how to do it. I just couldn't figure it out. So I have them in my basement, and I always look at it, and I'm like, I think I should throw these out. I'm like, part of me doesn't want to throw them out because that was like my blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
We had to wear these bunny suit outfits. So we would go into the fabrication facility, and we were making microprocessing chips. So you can't have one speck of dust on there. And there were some really interesting people that worked there, but I was just straight out of college, making a lot of money, spent it all in the bar scenes and the whole 9 in Austin, Texas, but it was a good time.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, it's, we look back on some of those times, especially like when we're young and not that we're old. I mean, I feel like I'm that guy back in our day. That's not what
we were kids.
Yeah, when we were kids, we used to do this. What I love is like, you look back when you were young and like you could go for days, like, no sleep.
Oh,
go to the bar, come home, go right to work, and like do it again the next day, and you never felt the pain. Not so much today. It's like, hey, I had 2 beers, like I'm down for a week.
You're telling me I don't even drink anymore because I'm just like, hey, if I want to live a long life, I'm an old dad. So it's like if I want to extend that runway, I'm going to do everything in my power. I go to the gym, and I hate going to the gym, and I'm tired. I'm like, it's for the kids, right? But yeah, I used to work at Disney World out of college. I was in the college program in 1998. And so I was the only one who had a car. I was also the only one when I say only one, we all lived in these little apartments. It was called Vista Way, and it was like Party Central. And the only one in my apartment who had a car was also the only one who was 21. So it's not a good combo.
Oh, man.
And then I worked at Blizzard Beach Water Park, where the park opened out at 6 a.m. in the morning. And so parties till 2, 3, 4, and then I'm in the water park at 6 a.m. hosing down the park. And I did it time and time again. And I don't know how I did, but it was one of the funnest times of my life. It was amazing.
I wonder if that park's still open. Is it still there or they changed it?
It's still there, man. Every time I look it up, and I'm like, one of these days I'm going to get down there. We used to live in California, so we would go to Disneyland. It's easier. But Disney World is like the OG. They got Epcot and everything. And every time I hear like UB40 and, Jimmy Cliff, there's just certain songs. I can see clearly now. And I'll be walking through. I don't want to get you flagged because you can't have music on your podcast. But every time I hear that, I'm just envisioning me like half tired, cleaning up trash. I was a custodial host. So the reason I chose that, I was like, I could just walk around the park all day. And I did.
Man, that's so cool. You should go back. They maybe still have like the employee of the month banner up. Like you still may be hanging on the wall.
I have it downstairs. Speaking of things that you keep, it's an applausogram, and it says to Stephen Seidel for doing a good job scrubbing the showers. So hey man, you got to. This is what people don't get it anymore. But I had to work. I had a job doing dishes. First job doing dishes. I scrubbed floors. I cleaned toilets. I did it all. But that's what makes you the man you are today.
No kidding. Like you can still smell the chlorine in the air.
I can. And you know what? I'm going to let you in on a little secret. And I tell a lot of people this. Hopefully it doesn't get out. But, whatever. When you're at Disney and you're cleaning the water park, we would have these little walkie-talkies on. One time there was Pamela Anderson was there. And so me and my buddy were like talking.
Sweet.
But they have code words. So the code word for actually, I'm going to ask you, what do you think a honey bucket is?
Oh, man. I don't know. It has to be. I don't even know if I want to know. Maybe somebody puked in the pool?
Close. A honey bucket was when there was a little fecal matter in the wave pools and whatnot. So you can't shout that out while everybody's in the pool swimming. You can't be like, hey,
true.
We got a little, you know what? And then there's another one, protein spill. So that's what you were talking about. Protein spill is, and so they would have all these code words, and then they had these big, huge turkey legs, and the turkey legs were not turkey legs. They were actually emu legs, but they were massive. So you're holding this stick of meat walking around the water park looking like Fred Flintstone. I mean, it was an experience. I learned a lot, actually. I learned about synergy, 1 + 1 = 3. They were the first company to ever put out the movies, and then with the movies had merchandise and the toys and the soundtracks. They were doing it all before anybody had ever conceived of this. So shout out to Disney.
I actually had a guest on my podcast was actually the first one. She lives in California, and she I can't remember her name right now. That's terrible, but she actually was the marketing person that came up with, like when they did the movies, like all the marketing merchandise that you're talking about. She was the one who did that. It was really cool.
I got to go back and check that out because I want to meet this gal. One of the things that I loved is I was really into Toy Story, and I don't know when the show's airing, but Toy Story 5 is coming out, and it's coming out real soon. And my kids are looking forward to it. But I remember watching that in 96. The first one came out.
Oh.
And so Toy Story has spanned pretty much my whole adult life. But for me, it was the little green guys, like the claw is my master. So when I worked at Disney, there's a thing called property control. And they take all the toys that are like old or nicked up or whatever. And I had this little guy, and you'd squeeze him, and he'd go, the claw is my master. And I brought him to college just after I worked at Disney. And my best friend thought it would be a good idea after one late night of partying to put it in the microwave.
Oh,
we all know what happened to that guy.
Yeah.
He got ripped up, and I could never find another one. Everywhere I was like looking online, I was like, oh, but now I'm like pushing 50. I'm like, I can't buy a little blow up, little claws my master toy. But that girl probably created it.
She probably did, and like has it probably sitting on a shelf somewhere. So
I got to get her number and be like, can I get one of those old school the claws my master?
Yeah, she was talking about all the toys and things like that. She did. It was really cool. But anyway, so great history growing up, and I love one of the things you said there. I think it's so cool is like all these little things that we're talking about, and even myself, like those are moments in our life that define, and even what we do today. When we look back on those, we're like, cleaning up fecal matter out of that pool taught me something. I didn't know it was teaching me at that time, but I look back and like, I'm glad I went to college because I'd be doing that the rest of my life. I mean, that's a learning, that's an opportunity, right? Learning moment.
Yeah, I'm in the process. My wife is encouraging me to do this, but I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. But it's a book very early on in the process called Random Lessons from Odd Jobs. Growing up, I worked as an engineer, and then I went towards entertainment. So when I was an entertainer, I said, look, I'm not going to get a real job. I want to focus on auditions and craft. And I learned about, improvisation and being creative and really giving myself that tool set from the left brain and the right brain, which is what I feel like allows me to bring something very unique when I work with clients. But every single job, I was an elevator operator. And at one point I had to dress up as a nutcracker, and I'm bringing these people up and down in the freight elevator. And I see this girl from high school. Her name was Kate Wodika, and I was in the student government organization. She was a couple years younger. I think she kind of had a little crush on me or whatever.
Maybe.
And she comes in and she's like, Steve Seidel, and talk about humility and having to get over things and realize, look, there's more to than just, your confidence and your ego. Like that was an ego crusher. The more we can learn about getting rid of the ego, the faster that we're going to get to success. And so all these little things, whether it's Disney, I was also hired to be the guy who rang the closing bell for 7-Eleven on July 11th, and I would take all
Wow.
these odd jobs. So I dressed up as Mr. Slurpee, and I'm running around. I'm running around the stock exchange floor. I'm throwing like Slurpee straws everywhere, and it was fun. I think I made like $200. Closing bell, ding, 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 ding. I still have it on video. I'm on there with all the executives. You see Mr. Slurpee like waving, and my girlfriend at the time was like, "I don't know if I should be really proud of you or super embarrassed." But a couple of weeks later, she cheated on me, so I guess she was embarrassed. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
but that was your like, I've made it. I'm Mr. Slurpee on the
Mr.
closing
Slurpee, and
bell.
now, yeah, Mr.
And now look
Slurpee.
at you, like Mr. Slurpee. Like if that would have been a job that that'd be a really cool job being Mr. Slurpee. Like
On the regular, if they could hire somebody on a regular basis, I would eat that up. Like I grew up on 7-Eleven. That was the East Coast convenience store.
It's by far it's awesome. I mean, it's fantastic. I love 7-Eleven. They got the best fountain drinks, the best. Like you go in there, like their ice is the perfect ice. Like it's the best. I love it. It's right. It's like a lot of people are trying to be 7-Eleven, but they just can't be 7-Eleven.
Yeah. So when I ask my friends are always like, "Hey, are you doing another activity? You're doing another self-help thing? Like, what are you doing?" I'm constantly trying to learn and understand the way that I'm presenting myself, how I'm perceived. What am I looking to bring forward? And so it's a constant, we're constantly changing. I talk a lot about identity. And so for me, I think a lot of it started with that. So I talk about grit when we speak with our founders. Is nowadays you hear a lot, grit, resilience, the whole nine. But for me, grit is, being grateful, being resilient, having integrity, and developing that trust and that truth of who you really are. And so a lot of that starts when you're walking around picking up poop in Disney.
Agreed. I'll tell you a little funny. Like I was a school teacher. Yeah.
Nice.
10 years in one of my job, I had like for 5 years. I ran an alternative school, and I don't know if you're familiar with an alternative school or what that is, but it's basically, these are kids that have a really troubled past and
Talking Bad News Bears.
It's think about the Bad News Bears like on steroids, right? And so I was kind of like the coach in there. I ran the school, and so I had all these kids, and so I have multiple stories. Like I could do a whole show on just the stories that came out of that, because you get a chance to experience a lot of stuff. And so I always have people tell me, "Man, you should write a book." Like you mentioned that, like you should write a book on your time as a teacher, like doing that, all the stories. Like there's some that would have you in stitches, but man, it was fun. But I'll say, I'm like you, that job, you're talking about being resilient, grit, and being able to manage people. Like if you can take a room full of 15 kids that I'm talking about, most of them have like felonies, like they're bad.
Yeah.
And you can control that environment, that you can actually get from like 8:00 in the morning to 3:00 in the afternoon, that you can keep them there without killing each other. That's a day, man.
Hey, you know what that means? That means you can host Process Beats Pressure podcast, because the pressure was on, but the process was in place.
You had to, like, you learned very early on that if you got to be like, because I think about process is being 3 steps ahead of everybody else. That's what process is. Like you got to know, like you got to be ahead of, right? And if you didn't come with your A game in that room, forget it. They'd have you'd be like, the story of the duct taped on the wall. Like you'd be the guy they walk in, you'd be duct taped on the wall.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I had one kid in there. We had Miss Alabama. Is in Alabama. Miss Alabama came and was going to do like a presentation at the school. Well, this kid goes in like before a presentation and steals her laptop. Wow. And he takes it, hides it behind the bathroom. They called him, whatever. So, obviously, what are they going to do with him? He comes down. He's with me. Like, I said, man, how are you going to steal? Like, Miss Alabama's like, you're going to steal her laptop. Like, you can't even get into it, first of all, because it's got a password on it. And you got her whole presentation. Like, you stole it. Like, why would you do that? I don't know. It's kind of funny. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, man. That doing it dirty. That's where from a business perspective, the system, I like to keep the rule of 3 is my favorite. The systems, the strategies, the solution. So you had your systems, you had your strategy of how to come at them or how you want to approach them. And then your solution is, you had your various solutions in order to solve that. But yeah, if they could see you now,
oh my God,
I wonder where they're at, dude. I always do that. I love to look back. And for me, so I have a 30-year reunion coming up. And I talk a lot about this too, is when I was growing up, I was 5'3" when I graduated high school. And so I'm a recovering people pleaser. My parents were in a divorce. So I found myself in the middle, like constantly trying for validation. But finally, I've gotten myself to a point where, we have to deal with all these things. We make the choice, we resolve it, we figure out how to move forward. But I love to look back and kind of see how things were, and then how am I entering the building now in a different way, and what did I learn?
Yeah, I think that's the the reflection part as business owners, right? Like you look at your history. You was an engineer, and now you're you got marketing and you name it. Like those things in our past is like, I guess it's the way I look at it is like, man, this is not even the person I was when I walked across that stage then. And like
Yeah.
it's weird going back because everybody knows you as like, hey, there's Steve, he's like 5'3", like,
Yeah.
but you're not that person anymore, right? You're like, hey,
Yeah.
you're not the poop cleaner out of the pool anymore. I mean,
Yeah,
you're a
I'm not
different
doing
dude.
that anymore. See, they didn't even know about that, but they will know next time it comes. So yeah, we're doing that 30-year reunion, and that's where it's like, man, time flies. And that's where to go back to the process and the habits and everything like that, I like to make sure that I do things that are going to keep me continuing to improve, right? We want to grow, whether it's 1% a day, but also being present. I've known as I get older, that's really, we just did a podcast for my men's group. It's called Gent's Journey. I said, show up on Sunday, Father's Day, just show up. It's not about the perfect present, but it's about being present. And too often, you're trying to search for things or find validation or do all these bells and whistles, when really, if you're there and you're present and you're showing up in people's lives and your own life, that's all you can really ask for. So
Agreed. And even being a business owner, when whether you're a business entrepreneur of one or you've got 20 people or 100 people that work for you, like it's very common. I see it all the time, especially when I'm working with other companies, is like, the executive team or the people, they're not present. And what I mean by like, they're physically there, but they're not present with their people. And it's because a lot of times it's because of the pressure, because the process is broken. And so they're so busy trying to, I call it the wrangling effect. They're trying to wrangle everybody in the process and get it going because they're such out of whack that they end up like they're not present in the moment with what's going on, like with their people or their company and it gets overlooked sometimes. And it's like a big culture shift that happens, right? Like you see that where people start, you've been in business where they're like, yeah, I don't really like working here anymore. Nobody cares about me, da, da, da. I mean, you hear that, right? Like,
yeah. As soon as I went to Motorola, there was a guy, I remember I came in, I said, hey, we're going to have Team Fridays. I was trying to bring my idea. He's like, I've been working here 20 years. I'm not doing any Team Fridays. And so he was like, but then eventually people started doing it. I was like, hey, we're going to have our socks match our shirts day, or like our college t-shirt days, and just trying to find ways. And that's where, when we go back to like what I do for connection engineering, is to find ways that we can engineer that connection so it becomes integrated in who you are, to build that culture. And so we want to be connected to our calling. We want to be obviously connected to our consumer, but also our community. And when we have that sense of responsibility and we know the subtle nuances that will, like you talked about, motivate others or inspire them or get them to come out. And so a lot of organizations right now, they're driven by the bottom line, which is great. And you should be if you're a for-profit business, and you need to have profit. But what we try and do from an organization is to really understand the narrative you're telling, the story that you're telling. What do the employees look like? Are you culturally aligned? And usually at my company, I have this cool little card deck that we created at my men's group, and it's got a bunch of really insightful questions. And the reason we created this is because oftentimes people jump right into business, or as a man, we aren't as open and vulnerable and into building bonds as others. And so simply sharing something personal just gets you off to the races. So every time we start a meeting, I ask one of these questions. Could I ask you one?
Yeah, please. I love
Tell me when. So this is like there's a book called there's a book called The Artist's Way, which is by Julia Cameron. It's called The Spiritual Guide to Higher Creativity, and we had to read it when we were younger. Not when we were younger, but when I was an actor, so that we could connect on a deeper level to who we were and like where we're. And one of the activities is go back, look into who you wanted to be or what you wanted to be when you were older, and bring that into your present life. So then you have more subtle nuances. If it's fun, it gets done. So I always wanted to be a magician. So I created this card deck so I could play with cards. And then the magic is in your answer. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
This is easy for you, man. The question is, how do you live out your purpose every day?
Ooh, I like that. How do I live out my purpose every day?
And look at the other one I pulled up. What did you want to be when you grow up? I was just talking about that.
I know.
See, that's serendipity right there, brother.
It is. I think for me, what I live out my purpose like is being a man of doing what I say I'm going to do. Like I think when I think about people that I would want to encounter, like yourself or whoever, I want people to be real and genuine, and that's the way I want to. That's how I treat people. I want at the end of the world, I want people to go, man, that dude really cared about me and he tried to help me. That's what it is for me.
I love that. Yeah, me too, man. I remember I spoke to somebody, he was like a coach, and I said, look, I just want to make people happy. And he was like, well, if they don't want to be happy, you can't make them be happy. I'm like, that's true. That's true. And so late, I was like, hey, let me reanalyze this and say, when we were growing up, I was in the Cub Scouts. A lot of these people don't do these types of things, but it's always like, or if we were catering, we would say, hey, we want to leave it better than we found it, right? We come into a concert hall, we party down, or, we have a big, like, how can we leave it better than we found it? We're just being a soundboard. So, dude, that's one of the reasons why I'm happy to be on the show. So thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that too. Let's leave it better than I found it. I think that's, here we go. We're going to go back to memory lane, like growing up. Like, my grandfather was he was a farmer, worked hard, never made farmed and, just, we had the garden and all of it. Right? I grew up like some, but he always said this, and I thought it was great. He's like, he always said, Chad, if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability. Otherwise, why would you do it? And I remember that, and I've stuck with me. And I think that's probably, you've probably heard it, and I'm sure a lot of people use it, but that is one of the best advice you can do is like, if you're going to spend time with people, then be the best version of you when you're spending time with them.
Yeah.
That's the way I take it. If you're going to do a job, like, do the job that you would want in return. And for my company and my business, and I'm sure the same with you, is if I'm going to do something for somebody, I'm going to do it the way that I would want it done. If I'm going to cut corners, then I'm not doing it the best of my ability, then that's not fair to them. And I think that's like, I think that's how we should live our life. If you're going to do something, do it good, man. Do it the right way. Don't cut corners. Do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. Say what you're going to do what you're going to say. Yeah,
that's it.
For sure. I agree with that.
So you said something to me, kind of talk about that stuck with me. You called yourself the ideation guy.
Yes.
So just let's talk about that. Explain to people like what do you mean by that?
Oh, I have this book right here. I don't know if you've ever read this book. It's called The 6 Types of Working Genius. Have you ever read that book?
I have not.
So
I do know Patrick Luciani though. He's got several books. He's really good.
He's one up here. So I noticed that anytime I go forth, and so I'm neurodivergent, right? I pretty much have it all. I haven't really had a crazy diet, but like I'll flip words around, a little bit of dyslexia. I know I have a lot of energy from ADHD. And, I'm on the scale there some way. But one of the things that I've noticed about myself is I love to just create, come up with ideas, and figure out new solutions. And so that's why initially I went into engineering. But then as I started to look further into it, there was also this love to tell the story behind what it was that we were creating. And so anytime I'm working with something, at the end of the day, I'm trying to figure out how can we create something that's going to help people, but also in a new revolutionary way. Obviously, if it's not broke, then don't fix it. Yes. But for me, I just love to create. And I said it on a couple other shows, love, creativity, abundance. These are all things that you can put time and effort into them, and they're not finite. They continue to give more of them. Like creativity is endless. The more that we create, the more that we want to create more. And it's like a brain or a muscle that we're working in our brain. And so like my daughter now, she's younger. She's always bored. Hey, I'm bored. It's because she's always got a tablet in her hand or has all these things. And she isn't able to sit and be with her emotions. And it's up to me as a parent to give her that freedom, because then once she is, then this morning I said, look, no TV. An hour later, she's drawing, making all sorts of colorful things and creating things. So when I say ideation, it's more about the process of creating. I really love creating things. And sometimes I find myself working with a client and we have a one sheet, and I'll spend an hour, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours working on this one sheet. I'm like, this isn't the most effective use of my time, but I love creating something and seeing it come to fruition. And that's what I love working with, like leadership. We have a TEDx framework where I work with individuals like yourself and founders, where you figure out what it is that truly makes you tick. What is the story behind that? And how can we tailor that so that it's so powerful, so uniquely you, and vulnerable at the same time? Because what we go through, we grow through, that it will inspire and it will empower others, because they're going to see themselves in you. And then they're going to want to go out and show up as their best version of themselves.
Yeah, I love, when you talk about your creativity and your storytelling and that, like that, I love that. And I think that's like, that's one of the things that drew me into you is the fact that like, you're such a good storyteller. Like you flow very well when you talk. I think that's really, that's a gift, by the way.
Thank
Probably
you.
know that. But I think that's what's cool about like the way you approach business is because it is every leader, every business owner, everything there is a story within that. We kind of talked about it a lot. Your past, your present, and your future is a story. It really is, and that story is so important to who you are, and it makes you a better leader. It makes you a better husband. It makes you a better what community member, whatever is when you can connect your story into who you really are and live out that purpose with those two in line. In my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the thank you for sharing that. That's one of the things that when we do our work, we want to be conscious of these stories, right? To me, the stories is the bridge. It's the connective tissue that helps, you can be connected to someone, but then the story is going to help you, connect with them with ultimately trying to derive impact on that. And there's the story we tell ourselves, right? Oftentimes we have limiting beliefs from a founder's perspective, or your mindset is limited, or, I'm a recovering people pleaser. So I would have this story where I need external validation, or I need them to like it, when in reality, I just need to love myself and be comfortable in my own skin. And if I create something that I like, I feel as if others would probably like that as well. Rick Rubin talks about it all the time. He's not a trained producer, but yet he's generated tons and thousands of hits. His book is amazing. And so there's a story we tell ourselves. There's a story that we share when we get on a pedestal. How can we leverage those painful moments and failing forward so that we can inspire others? And then there's a story that people say when you leave the room. And I think that comes back to your identity, your alignment, and then ultimately your character, or who you are when your character is, what people say about you when you leave the room. And, you could be a father, you can be a businessman, but there's going to be
That's
that
it.
backbone or that structure of your identity of really who is the truth and what is your unique point of view and your authentic self. That is crucial nowadays in the world that we live in the age of AI, because you can generate things here and there that could be, it could be a story, but when you live it and you embody it and you're able to genuinely show it, and your teammates and your colleagues and your community actually see you experiencing that amongst them, is really what is the most important thing.
Yeah. One of the things that I always find interesting, and you were talking, I'm sitting here, popped in my head, so it's like thinking about it because it's really true. It's like, and this is more like a question because I am going to ask you a question, but what I see a lot is not necessarily just in business leaders, whatever, and then they have this life that they're different when they're not at work, whatever.
Yeah, we talk about this in my men's group. We like to say we try to move the mask from masculinity. When you're in the act of doing something, you're actively contributing towards something, and you're not in your head. When you're sitting around and getting in your head and overthinking things, that's where oftentimes we're trying to present ourselves in a specific way to which we think that's what they want. When we can replace judgment with curiosity, even with ourselves, and be like, hey, why am I thinking that? Oh, I'm not good enough, but really I am good enough. I've been through this. I have something to share. I am an expert in my place. And whether or not they disagree or don't, or do agree, is up to them to choose. We can't tell people how to choose or how to think.
Man, so true. But it's just so interesting that, I mean, it's got to be exhausting, right? And I say this for like the business owners that I work with, and you, like, to try to live in those two different worlds is like, which version of you is getting the best?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, in our men's group, we try and break it down. It's all about balance in life, at work, home life balance, professional and personal life. And that's what we try to work on, showing up, but, family, fitness, fun, focus, faith, freedom, and fun. If it's fun, it gets done. So making sure that we're touching all of those things. But when you come back to the present moment, you can't really dictate how you're showing up. You're not in your head. You're not manufacturing. You're just really in the moment. And so our mission at my company is to do good, give back, and make an impact, because we want to be of service. We want to be moving forward. We want to be positively impacting our world. But I do say that you want to do good, but be great. And for great, it stands for grateful, reflective, like we talked about earlier, empathetic, accountable, say what you do what you're going to say, transformational. So from a transformational perspective, I struggled with myself when I lost my mom. It was like, man, I had just moved to a new town. I have a virtual company, my family, 1-year-old. I was like, man, this is like every major experience. And then I just was like, I need something. That's why I created my men's group. But I was coming from a place where I was trying to find happiness outside of myself. And so I needed to come from happiness instead of for happiness. So when I surrounded myself with people that would, empower me, and I found myself, I was able to, reconnect, rebuild, and like reclaim my sense of purpose. That's where I think sometimes at work we have a different sense or purpose or compass, and that's where it's crucial for us to be in alignment to make sure that the company has the same core values. And what we do when we consult is I have my 4M framework where we start with your mission. What is your mission? What is your why? Why do you get up every day? You don't have to go to work. You get to go to work. But then what is that message? What is the message that's most important for you as a person or your organization? And then the media will come in, and that's a way to elevate it and pour some gas on it. But ultimately, we want to build a movement. So the more that we can find that alignment with the companies that we work with, the cultural alignment, you're going to feel fulfilled. It's not going to be draining, and you're going to hopefully find that flow.
Yeah, it's great. I think for me, I'll tell you, and just along with that line, and for me, it's funny. I didn't know it in the moment, but I know it now that I own my own company. And I look back on I was in a place where I was trying to chase a title. And I'm sure you've had people that you've talked to that's very common, right? You get in, you think that power or success is valued in what your title is from work.
Yeah.
And I say that because it goes back to what I just said a few minutes ago. And that's because you're segmenting your two worlds that you live in. And so you think that by having a title is what's going to make people are going to look at it and go, well, he's a senior vice president. He's brilliant. He's smart. He's whatever that is, or what we tell ourselves. Right. And we end up looking back and going like, I could be just as happy as being the guy scrubbing the toilets with the Clorox wash.
Yeah.
And because it's not really getting a title, there is no power in having that title. Like there is none. Like we think there is, but there's really not. And like, what is that? And man, I've talked to so many business owners that really the root cause of a lot of their problem is that they've just constantly have tried to advance up, and then they finally
climb the ladder.
And then finally get at the top, and they're like, man, it's kind of lonely up here.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like this, because it is lonely.
Yeah. I think we spend a lot of our lives growing up. We want to accumulate. We want to get more. We're in this consumer mindset, capitalism. We got to get more. But then once we reach this point, right, when it's second act, third act of your life or whatever, you realize, hey, it's time to let go. Then you start stripping everything, and you want to go back to a place where it's simple, and you realize, hey, none of these people's opinions really matter at the end of the day. And so that's where, like, working at home, like, how can I let go of these things? How can I let go of the expectations? How can I let go of the need to be important? How can I get rid of the ego? We just start stripping ourselves as we grow older and recognize that it's not about any of these things, because when we're on our deathbed, it's going to be about, was I with my family? Was I present? What did I do to help drive an impact and leave a lasting legacy? It wasn't, being the SVP at, a CPG company and being the most, and that's what I saw too a lot. I was an actor in Hollywood, and you would see a lot of, and I always felt like, hey, one day I'm going to move. And I wasn't present in the moment because I felt like there was this, obviously, there's some morality to that where people once they get to the top, they want to stay at the top, because if you get knocked down, then you're not making money. You're not the it guy. And you define your life on these certain titles. So you see it a lot when people retire, which I work with a lot of gentlemen when they retire. It's like, look, I don't know what to do anymore. It was all about my work. And that's where having that sense of self-work, sense of balancing your life out, making sure that you're in alignment and have the greatest version of yourself.
Yep. Love it. So, hey, look, kind of getting toward the end. I've got these 5 rapid fire questions that I'm going to ask you. And we'll go through those, and you just answer the first thing on your mind. You don't get the chance
I love it. There's no editing on this one.
Okay, no editing here. This is it. So here we go. You ready? Number 1, Philly cheesesteak or Kentucky barbecue? You have to pick.
Without a doubt, it's I'm Philly through and through. You can take the boy out of Philly, but you can't take the Philly out of the boy.
Okay,
I'm underdog, right, baby. Philly cheesesteak. Go to Pat's, and they have Pat's on Goldbelly too. Oh, so my men's group, when stuff went awry and I lost my mom, boom. Next day later, there was like 4 cheesesteaks from Pat's that showed up at my doorstep, and that's where true connection and knowing who they are matters.
100%. Love it. There
with Whiz.
I was going to say
Whiz, bro, and get the onions on there too.
and if you don't if you don't get it with a Whiz, you're missing out. Like, don't do that other kind of cheese.
Come
crap.
on,
That's
you
not
only live
yours.
once.
That's right. You got to do it right.
Dude, I got some cheesesteaks in the freezer. I'm gonna make one. I think. Thanks for doing
Oh
that
my
for me.
God, they're
It's
so
gonna be
good
my
too.
lunch.
Now you got everybody hungry. All right, next one. The best idea you ever had that you never executed.
Dude, there's a lot of them. So here I'm gonna give you 3. So we had an idea before. So I had Laugh Your Abs Off. It was going to be a whole workout thing where it was going to be comedians. It's going to be a workout. And studies show that when you laugh, you actually lose calories. So that was one that hasn't been completed. I have a book that I'm working on right now that it's like a book based on puns. I'm going to get that one done. But there was one that we had when I was in LA. A bunch of us came together and there's a little solution that to go back, we're going to go full circle to the honey buckets. So if you drop a honey bucket in a toilet, there's now this thing called poopery. You probably heard of poopery.
Oh, yeah.
But before poopery came out, we found out that I think it was China or Japan. There's a solution you drop and it covers the toilet. And we were at the forefront and we were like this close to pulling the trigger. We needed to put our money in and we like bailed on it. But we were going to call it secret drops. And the slogan was going to be, shh, it don't stink. And so we had all that together and then we didn't do it. And then all of a sudden poopery hit the scene and like went off like gangbusters. So that was another one. And then most recently I had a show concept that I was calling it Famous Last Words. And so what I wanted to do was to work because I'm all about, creating your narrative, building a lasting legacy, and was like, hey, what if we give people an opportunity to sort of reshape their narrative and they feel like they've been wrongfully, positioned or, they didn't. And now you'll notice there's a new TV show that came out on Netflix that I'm not going to say they took it. I don't even know if I pitched it to them, but there's a show called Famous Last Words. Eric Dane was on there before he passed away. They interview him and it's literally his last interview that he's ever given. And he talks to his children and it's extremely powerful. So I have these ideas that come up on a regular basis and I just have notes and notes and notes, but those are 3 of them.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Charles Barkley, I know you're a Barkley fan. Charles Barkley as a business advisor, genius move or total chaos?
Charles Barkley, business advisor. So what are the options? Genius move?
Genius move or total chaos. So think about him as a business advisor.
Yeah. He's a loose cannon, but he speaks the truth.
He does.
So one of the greatest things, and this is where it goes back to, if it's fun, it gets done. It's like when you watch these guys, when it's him, Kenny, Shaq, they're just having fun. And that's what makes it so enjoyable. When you talk about separating yourself from business and personal, it's like if you're separating yourself, there's no way you can have fun because you're not your most authentic self. So that's our goal as a leader. And for him, I would say it would probably be good to have him on board for a multitude of reasons. He's going to shoot you straight. He's got the credibility that he can put your product, like look at him. He's in all these commercials, Capital One, you name it. And then he also has the ability to drive capital resources behind it. So I'm going to say Charles Barkley, having grown up watching you as a round mound of rebound from Auburn, come on, join my team. If you're listening, I'd love to have you join my board.
Me too. And I'm going to tell you I will say, he is pretty business savvy too. He's got some great business and he's got
good teeth. He's on that GLP-1. He's skinny now. He looks
good. His head's the same size now, like it not used to be.
Yeah.
He's got that big head. I mean,
see him. So just to on a sidebar, he announced a game during the NCAA tournament alongside Dick Vitale. Did you see that? It was to see Dick Vitale, who I'm getting goosebumps, but for me, that's been my connection growing up on sports, being with my dad and listening to brilliant announcers. Like the announcers are so crucial to the game because they give you the color analysis, they give you the play-by-play, they give you all the key components to really enjoying the game and you feel like you're actually there.
Yes.
And to see him alongside Dickie Vitale was one of the most amazing experiences ever.
Yeah, I mean,
and it was at a UK game, and he mentioned this local spot. I can't remember the name of it, but then it blew up because he said it on air, and everybody started running over there to go and have some of the food there.
Oh my God! Oh, see, my brain. This is how my brain works. You ever been to Primanti Brothers?
I've been to Primanti Brothers several times. I went to Penn State, so we've been to Pittsburgh. It's okay. You got the fries in there. You got the coleslaw.
You gotta try it.
Yeah, you got to try it. Like 100%. Primanti Brothers is an institution so that's a question from our Jen Sterney deck, probably our most favorite question that we strongly encourage when you're at a party and you don't want to talk to people or you feel like you don't have a connection. You go up and you say, hey man, what's your favorite sandwich? And boom, all of a sudden you're going to learn about where they're from, dietary restrictions. They're going to start telling you stories, giving you restaurants. And before you know it, you're going to be best friends. And so don't just sit there in the corner with your phone, ask them what their favorite sandwich is.
Love it. That's great advice. All right, 2 more.
Cool.
One word your closest friend would use to describe you.
My closest friend would use to describe me. One word would be because I ask these guys all the time. He would probably say, I mean, I hate the term, but he would say crazy.
I
mean,
love it.
You got to be crazy in order to make it.
Crazy's not always bad.
Yeah, like the Seal song, you're never going to survive unless you get a little crazy.
There you go.
It's like that's where you got to get outside the box. That's where you got to be willing to try things. Like I would never shy away from trying something. I'll tell you a quick story. Gary Vee, I've always loved him, wanted to meet him. He was out in LA promoting his K-Swiss shoes. There was a line around the block of about 1,000 people, maybe 5,000. And this was a huge moment in my life. And I said, I want to meet Gary Vee. What's going to stop me? Who's going to stop me from seeing him? The only person that's going to stop me is myself. So I went and walked all the way to the front of the line. I looked at the doorman and said, what's up, man? And I went right in and opened the door and I walked right in there and I met him. And
that's awesome.
It was a life moment of me. It's like, you can stop yourself, but if you want something bad enough, you got to get off your ass and go get it.
Amen. I love that. That's so true. Awesome advice. All right, here's the last one. And I ask everybody the same question. So I'm going to hear what does process over pressure mean to you?
It's a great question. So process over pressure to me is pressure is going to be part of the situation in the world we live in. No pressure, no diamonds, right? So you need pressure in order to succeed. You need pressure in order to grow. So when you have these processes in place, for me, it starts, there's the morning routines. You can use the word habits. You can use their, however you want to phrase it. The guy in my men's group, we have this thing, it's called morning pies, where you do something physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual every morning. It all starts with your morning routine, but that's where you have your morning routine. You have your exercise, your meditation, whether it's walking meditation, whether it's prayer, but you have to get yourself, I get excited. You have to take a moment to breathe, to know that your heart is beating for you, to know that your lungs are working for you, and know that you have these systems in place that are all conspiring for the greater good. So I think when you have these things in place and you write things down from a gratitude perspective, what's one thing you're grateful for? The night before you go to work, you look at what's the top priority that I'm going to focus at the end of the day. But having these small systems in place are going to allow you to flourish because you don't need to think about them. You can stack your habits. And then when S hits the fan, because it's going to, you can take a moment and breathe. That's what the Navy SEALs do. They have box breathing. Yeah. They have all these individual things that they need to do because it's going to go wrong. But it's just a matter of, will you respond and take a 6-second pause and figure out what needs to be done? Or are you going to react and let it go off the rails?
Love it. Guys, that's the end of our show. Stephen, thank you so much for being on. As always, I'm Chad Paris. This is Process Over Pressure. Till next time.
Thank you so much.